Horizen Hacker House. How y'all doing today? What's going on? Woo! That's some good energy right there. I like this. I like this. We're gonna have. You got the energy of the crowd, right? This is us. Okay, let's do this. We are here to talk about Apechain. This is the panel here, the Horizen panel, about a new era in Web3 gaming. I've been a part of ApeCoin DAO for a long time now, a very passionate member. Voted, on like 100 proposals in a row. Just had a proposal pass. So I'm a successful author now. We built some tech. I'm really, really excited about DAOs. I've been in DAOs for a few years, and ApeCoin DAO here since early May last year. And one of the things that really excites me about DAOs is that all of us, all of you, everyone here, we all get to have a voice. We all get to participate in something that in many cases in the past we never had a chance to have a real say in the organizations we work with, in the directions that it goes, and where the money gets spent, and how, and where, and why. And we can all just step up and provide value and be seen for that contribution and rise to the top as individuals inside of a cool decentralized group. That's one of the things that drew me to this ecosystem. And as we all know, everyone who participated, who voted on Apechain? Let me see. Who are the voters? Well, we got some voters. The thing that's exciting about DAOs is everyone gets a say. The challenge of a DAO, of course, is that everyone has a say, and everyone's say is often very different. And it's one of those cool experiences to be in the DAO ecosystem, to see the diversity of perspectives that come to the table, and then climaxes in a final result, as we have right now with Horizen and Apechain in the way that it's set up moving forward. So now, us community members and everyone listening to the recordings of this, now we all have the opportunity to rally behind it. The voting is done. The polls are in. The team is here. Now we get to move forward and build it as a community and rally around it as an ecosystem. So from the heart, from me, that's what I'm excited about. That's why I wanted to be here on this panel and do some moderating. I really, really want to get behind Apechain and see it succeed now that it's here, and we're all here together to try and make that happen. So that's from the heart there. And now I'm going to just shut up and let these guys introduce themselves, because they're a lot more qualified than me on a lot of these fronts. So take it away, man.
Hey everyone, I'm David. I'm from ApeCoin DAO. And for now, I'm responsible for the ApeCoin Metaverse strategy. And it's my honor to be here and represent our ApeCoin DAO to share some insights and the progress and the future about Apechain. Yeah, thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Mike. Really excited to be here. Definitely sort of humbled to be sitting next to the giga brains behind Arbitrum and Apechain and obviously Horizen Labs. My background's in mostly blockchain, computer science, and aerospace engineering. I've been in blockchain space really since like 2017. Right now I run a company called CR3 Labs, which is a digital product studio focused on Web3 collectibles and gaming. We're working on 2 products. Both went through the ApeCoin DAO, so I have a lot of insight and experience into the process, and really excited to share what I can and answer any questions. And yeah, just stoked about Apechain.
Hey everyone, I'm Steven Goldfeder. I'm co-founder and CEO of Offchain Labs. Offchain Labs does a few things. Number one, we're best known for being the initial builder and core contributor to the Arbitrum technologies, and super excited to be here to talk about Apechain, building together with Horizen on the Arbitrum technology stack as an Arbitrum Orbit chain. And we also build Prism, which is the leading Ethereum consensus client. I've been in this space since about 2013, and super excited to be here today to talk about Apechain.
Cool. And I am Spencer Soloway. I am VP of Ecosystem Growth at Horizen Labs. That means I wear a number of different hats, but most importantly for this conversation has been, I've been one of the forces in terms of making sure that we can get to the point where we're not just building Apechain, but building it in the way that we believe is going to be the most sustainable, the most beneficial to ApeCoin and the ApeCoin DAO, and one that really kind of fits into the broader narratives and ways that Web3 gaming is going to be going. And, I've spent a lot of the last couple of months on the political side of it and making sure that we're aligned and talking to everybody in the ape community and that we're getting everybody's opinions, whether they've agreed with us or not. The latter in some ways almost more important, and making sure that we're all kind of aligned and now we're in a place where we can have a cohesive, collaborative vision going forward and kind of move off of that campaign part of things and towards a place where we can start building. So my role is starting to shift from that part to the second part and making sure that, you know, we're making Apechain everything that it can be.
Right on. Well, thank you everyone for coming out here. I'm going to direct the first questions here over to David and Mike. Right. So when we're doing the voting here for Apechain that took place about a month ago now, I suppose, AIP 378, remember right? When you voted for Horizen and when you voted for the direction that it is, why did you do that? Why was this a clear decision for you? What was exciting and what motivated you to make the vote in the way that you did? Both of you.
Okay. So from my side and from, so I'm active in Asia community. From Asia community side, we talked a lot with, Horizen, with, Apechain before the voting, and about the vision and about the, technical solutions for Apechain. So I think from 3 points. The first is that we do believe the technical solution for Apechain is the best right now for integration into the Apechain. The second point is that we do see, Apechain is doing the same thing like in ApeCoin DAO. They have Apechain DAO. I talked with Steven yesterday about the vision and the structure. I think it's good. We do have a lot of things in similar, so we can learn from each other and move forward together. And then from the third point is that, for now, ApeCoin DAO is solving a lot of things, ApeCoin DAO and a lot of things, and we do want, some good, partners who can help us to boost our ecosystem. And we look into the Apechain and Horizen ecosystem, what they have done in the past years, and we do believe that they could help with us and work with us to bring this up. Yeah.
Love it.
I have a somewhat similar in the fact that obviously it aligns with our goals and the things that we're trying to do within our company and our products. But when it's a really nuanced decision trying to select a chain, every single chain has its own benefits, its own downsides, really just depending on use case. And when it comes to Arbitrum and Apechain, for a gaming ecosystem specifically, you need really high throughput and you need really low gas fees. And right now, Arbitrum's just the best solution for that. It's going to be the best applicable tech and product for gaming and also for our products, which have very similar needs. And then in addition to that, I've actually been following Steven's work for some time now. He's done a lot of amazing things like in the MPC world, so multi-party computation. And they've been thinking about scaling blockchains pretty much since blockchains existed, actually even before they existed almost. So they're a highly technical team. Yeah, very, very confident in their ability, not only from a tech perspective, but also just from a long-term perspective. I think that, when we think of a blockchain, people tend to have a short horizon. They think of what's happening now, what's happening in the next year or so, but the reality is when you spin a product up, you need to be thinking about 10 years, maybe even 20 years in the future. And I think that Horizen Labs and Arbitrum are the ones that are going to be able to make that happen.
Well, speaking of Steve and Horizen Labs and Arbitrum, this next question's for you. And I wonder if you wanted to elaborate on how the collaboration really came about in the first place.
I'm happy to. You can. It's up to you.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll take it.
You take it.
I'll give from our perspective, and you can tell me from yourself.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you so much for the very kind words. Definitely, I think, we do have a very long-term vision. And actually, when we've been talking to different community members for a very long time about, murmurs of Apechain ever since like the other side launch and Yuga. Like there's been some constant discussion about this, but it became very real a couple months back when Polygon initially put up their proposal. And before we met Horizen, we were thinking for a long time internally, like, do we want to propose something? And on the one hand, we're big believers in the ApeCoin community, and like, yes, we'd love to support them. On the other hand, we said, like, we want to make sure that this thing can be successful. And are we the best people to make this successful? I think we bring something very important to the table, but I don't think it's the full picture. And, I think, riffing off what you just mentioned, the long-term vision, we never look for an announcement. An announcement is like nice, but we look for like the day after the announcement. Okay, and how do we got this great announcement, we got some media buzz, press, Twitter, etc. It's very exciting, but how do we actually make sure that it succeeds? And the last thing we want, and you see this a lot of time in the space, is there are teams that do announcement after announcement, and a year later you wake up and say, hey, whatever happened with that thing? And like, that's not what we wanted with this. There's an engaged community that's going to keep us honest. And so we said, well, can we actually make this a success? We can bring the technology. I do think Arbitrum's fast block times, low cost, are actually what a gaming ecosystem needs to succeed. And the third prong of that is the on-chain tools to actually give ApeCoin DAO the ability to govern the chain and not have centralized points, and basically replicate the same structure that the Arbitrum DAO used for that. The Arbitrum Foundation also was willing to give funds to get the chain up and running. But the question was, we needed something more. We needed to understand that there was a community members involved and a vision involved that would actually make this successful, and there's a driving, cohesive vision, and community members are bought in. And that's when we started speaking to community members, and it became clear to us we wanted to partner with the Horizen team, because they brought that piece of the puzzle that we didn't have. And honestly, had it not been for partnering with the Horizen team, I don't think we would have joined. We would have, not because I don't believe that our tech is the best for this, but because I'm not here pretending to have been a long-term member of the ApeCoin community. I'm very happy to now become one and to have a larger part in that. But I also am very honest, and I've not been there from day one. I don't know exactly what every community member wants. I don't even know necessarily always who the right people are to talk to, and we needed a strategic partner to focus on the growth of that chain. And I think this is the ideal partnership. So we bring the technology that I think can power this, and it will power this to be one of the most successful chains, and certainly gaming chains in the ecosystem. And we have Horizen here who can help not only give their view, but also help make sure that we're including the broader community. And this is not our vision or their vision, but the broader community's vision. And those are the two ingredients that I think are necessary to make this successful. That's why I'm super excited that we're here and doing this. I think we have the right partnerships here, the right teams here to make this not just a great announcement that was a month ago or so that we all forgot about by now, but a series of great announcements and a series of just successes for this chain and for this community.
Yeah, and all of that is obviously spot on. I think that from our end, before we even sort of got into the partnership around getting this going, we had looked on our side, and there was thinking about Apechain, and there was a proposal kind of already out there that was about to get out there at that point. It wasn't out there quite yet, and we had sat down internally and said, okay, if Apechain is going to happen, how is it going to make sense? And we didn't think that it made sense for it to be just kind of a general purpose chain. We didn't think that it made sense to be just another DeFi chain with ApeCoin branding slapped onto it. We thought that if you're going to do this, the way to do it is you want to be able to really take advantage of and push forward the brand equity between, behind Apes, behind Apechain, and also make sure that it ties into what is really happening in that ecosystem already. It shouldn't just be some weird separate thing that sits to the side, and it needs to be really focused, right, in terms of its mission. And gaming was, the mission there. And, as we kind of went and, we talked to almost all of the sort of execution layer that, ended up proposing things. And to us, we really want to hit it off with the off-chain folks. We very quickly identified that we had a lot of common values and a lot of common missions. And, oh yeah, this was the best tech for this. And, oh yeah, there's already other orbit chains and things like that, and sort of this move towards making Arbitrum and the Arbitrum orbit ecosystem in particular this premier place for gaming. And it was really, to us, the only place that it made sense for the ApeCoin DAO to kind of go into, and the only one where there was going to be ongoing support that we could help draw on, that we could contribute to, and just to be able to have that back and forth. So yeah, it's this nice combination of it's the right tech, it's the right people, and it's the right timing all kind of coming together. And I'm glad that we were able to kind of get there as quickly as we did. And I think that from our side, we have a responsibility to be stewards of the community from our standpoint, I think, and it was important to us to be involved and make sure that the right decision was made at that. And we were able to feel very easily confident in that.
Thank you. And as an active member with ApeCoin DAO, for me, I like to know what's going on. I like to know exactly what the next steps are. I like to see if I can be involved in it, or if it's going to be completely handed off to a centralized entity and I'll never see it again. And so I know that these thoughts are in my brain, and that means that, and I know from other conversations, similar thoughts are with other people in the community as well. So the question is, it's an open question to you both as well, was what kind of communication can we expect? When I say we, I say what kind of communication can the ApeCoin community expect, and to bridge that gap of the expectations, and what kind of involvement can the community have input on? What can we do? Where are we going to be able to be a part of this instead of just waiting passively?
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that are coming up. So right now, it's sort of that time where there's sort of infrastructural groundwork and processes and systems that we're going to go out and propose that are kind of going there, right? So it's kind of been like heads down for a few weeks. You're going to start to see some more sort of opportunities to hear about it in public. We're going to be working very closely with, ApeComs and Marcom, and making sure that we're giving sort of those regular transparency updates, not just kind of hidden on discourse, but in public as well. I think that there's actually a lot to learn from, how Arbitrum actually does this in terms of the weekly kind of updates on Twitter and sort of what's going on, and having that public forum, I think, is something that we want to get to as well with this. As we move forward, there are also going to be a number of working groups and working committees that we're going to start to put together on it. And also, I think that there are going to be some things like potentially moving, more towards systems in terms of how grants operate in the ApeCoin DAO, in terms of how decisions are made, and in terms of having things like program managers and ways for people to get more directly involved. That we're thinking through how we can propose some of those things right now as well, and pluralistic grants and that sort of system, which is also, by the way, another benefit of working with Arbitrum and sort of some of the minds over there who have been thinking through similar things, and what we can learn from them and what they can learn from us, and on the ApeCoin DAO side from you all. But that's to all say that, like, in the next few weeks, there are going to start to be those working committees, working groups, places to get involved. And then I think the second part is it's really important on our side to sort of be able to expand things like the Made by Apes program more into Web3. And there is some of that there already, but to be setting up the infrastructure so that people who want to build, who are in the ape community, of which are a lot, have those very clear pathways to do it. So that's to say, there's a lot. If you ask me in 2 weeks, there'll be a lot more specifics, but to us right now, it is important to make sure that we're bringing those people in the right way, and also just making it easier for people who want to build on Apechain to get through the DAO process as well.
Yeah, and everything Spencer said, and the other thing I'll focus on is there's a lot of details, from like technical parameters to service providers, and like a lot of details. And what we're going to do is, and what we're doing, and the goal of some of these working groups is to create a very, very detailed recommendation. But it is a recommendation, because ultimately, you have to find the right balance. Or you can't go to the DAO for a vote on every detail, like, okay, what should this number be, what should that number be? People will get fatigued and not care. So they're looking at us, and from the technical side and from the growth side, to give specific recommendations. Like, we think this is a really good set of parameters. We think this is the right setup for the chain, and here's why, right? So with the details for you. But ultimately, that's the point where you have to understand is a recommendation, and that's where community feedback is critical, because ultimately, the community controls in a very literal way, in a technical way and in a non-technical way, this chain, and that feedback will be heard and will be incorporated, and we'll get there to the right place. So we're going to work hard not to just say, okay, you guys figure this all out and tell us what you want. We're going to say, this is what we think makes sense, this is why we think it makes sense, let us know what you think, and there's going to be a conversation there.
Yeah, and on that side, it's a really interesting chain to build, because I think that, a lot of times when you're bootstrapping a chain and you're sort of going out being like, oh, well, who's going to want to contribute to this, and how do I convince them of that, and how do I get started? And it's the exact opposite here, right? There are so many options and so many choices, and so many people are coming and saying they want to be part of it, that, it's going to be really important to be able to get to that, have that clear recommendation, right, and then be able to make the best choices which we can make, right? There don't have to be kind of the compromises that sometimes you see with new chains in a lot of ways here. So that's exciting, but yeah, I think it is important to make sure that there is that strong recommendation and map first.
So Steven, the 8-week gameathon, the Arbitrum Arcade.
Oh yeah.
Pretty cool news. Can you share a little bit about the challenges, or the migration, let's call it, of traditional game developers into the Web3 ecosystem? I think all of us that are gamers, we know that obviously Web 2 has some amazing games, and we want to have that experience, that fun, that almost addiction to the gaming world. We want to have that experience from the Web 2 benefit and leverage and expand on the really cool options and opportunities that obviously on-chain presents. So I wonder if you could elaborate a bit on some of the challenges you might see of bringing Web 2 or traditional game developers into this ecosystem, and maybe how you plan to look at it and address it.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look actually at the history of on-chain gaming, and it's come a very, very long way. We still have some work to do, but like if you go back to like 2017 era, like it was blockchain first, game second, and the people that were playing the games back then were those who were like, oh my God, I can like play a game on Ethereum. That is so cool. And they were usually terrible games, but that wasn't the point. That weren't the people they were catering to. Fast forward to today, you have like fantastic gaming studios that are actually building games, people that have built Web 2 games successfully, and now say, hey, we want to get into this Web 3 gaming for specific reasons, for the sovereignty of assets, etc., for the longevity that's sort of guaranteed by on-chain gaming, for the interoperability of the ecosystems, and I can go on. But you have like really good gaming developers, and part of the challenge though is how do you abstract the blockchain from these users while not diluting it? What I mean by that is, on the one hand, you can say, okay, let's make everyone sort of get a wallet and like figure out this blockchain thing and like use MetaMask and fund their wallet with ETH, and then you're going to shrink the set of users that want to play your game, because the truth is a lot of people that want to play a good game may not care about that. So you have to find the place where blockchain is additive, and the best way is to sort of say, okay, this blockchain piece is there. So if you want to take sovereign control of your assets, you can do that. If you want to go on chain and trade in a marketplace or go externally and bridge your NFT that you play in this game to a different ecosystem because some other third-party developer has now created an experience that you can take that to, that's wonderful. But if you don't want to and you just like want to play a good game and you don't know what this blockchain stuff is, it should also cater to you. So I think that's one of the big challenges, which is how to bridge these two communities and make sure that the blockchain is additive and important, but also that we're catering to those users who don't want to. And that's, maybe ironically for my seat, but I think the recipe there is good game should be number one, and blockchain should be a close number two. And good game is number one, meaning for those that don't care about number two, they still have a good gaming experience. And I think some of the technical challenges is, and this is some of the things we're solving with the Arbitrum stack, is a lot of game developers, they have legacy code, particularly Web 2 developers, written in like languages like C or C++ that don't translate to on-chain experiences and on-chain languages. And we've done work with Arbitrum Stylus, which is available to go live in Apechain if and when the community wants it, and I assume that they will, to actually allow developers to use their traditional languages. So they may have been building this gaming engine for the past 5 years in Rust or C or C++. They can now use that on-chain. It gets a little technical, but the point is you can take your tools that you had and use those on-chain as well. And so the idea is, rather than saying to these gaming developers, hey, learn this new technology stack, throw out everything you've done. No, we take the technology stack, and that's what we did with the Arbitrum technology stack, and that's what Apechain will have access to, and actually bend it to those developers to make that path really, really easy. So my first point was about the users, making it easy for them. If they care about the blockchain, that's awesome, and it will give them particular benefits. If they don't care about the blockchain, they can still come and play a fun game. And number two is the developers, to make it easy for them, because there's still an uphill battle there. There's a lot more interest there today than a year ago and 5 years ago, certainly. But it's still, when you talk to gaming studios, most of them haven't figured this out. There's like trouble with mobile distribution platforms that have a bias against blockchain games. There's a lot of structural problems we need to solve. And ultimately, if you go to them and tell them, so there's all these problems, there are these benefits, but also you have to like throw out everything you've done and relearn things. It's just sort of, inertia will tell them not to move over to the blockchain. So solving those technical problems for them, I think, and making the benefits outweigh the cons, because there will be cons in the early days, is important to getting both the users and developers.
Thank you. And David, from the metaverse perspective, the metaverse is such a broad term, and it's used so differently by different people. So I wonder if you could, a couple things here. If you could help us just understand in your own words, what's the role of the metaverse in the Web3 gaming? And perhaps specifically, how about the impact or the role that the ApeCoin Metaverse Working Group is going to play with Apechain and its development?
Okay, so from my side, metaverse is a bigger word, right? So we have seen this kind of things, since like 2007, 2008, And let's what we have in mind is most about like gaming, about social, like other deed and a lot of gaming things. But so from our side is from my personal side is metaverse is more about interaction. It's a new way of interaction. Interaction, between you and me and between everyone. Let's earn new things that just like we have seen a lot of VR and AI technology and we could think these kind of things will be integrated into the metaverse. And from the ApeCoin DAO perspective, what we do right now is that we hope to create a vision that everyone could join for creating everything, using your IP, using your tech knowledge, and using your context. So that's what we have done. Someone may be like, think, ApeCoin Metaverse is only limited in our ecosystem, using the Bold app, using the Mutant app, or, Punks, whatever. But I don't think this will be limited into these kind of things. So that's why we, cooperate with, Apechain, cooperate with Horizen. We want, bring a broader, audience into the ecosystem. And I think IP is just something that we could use for, for branding and marketing, but it's not everything that we will put into the metaverse. So I think in the coming future, we do, focus on how to encourage more users from Asia, from Europe, from Latin America to join. And for me, I'm trying to bridge the gap between West and the East. I think a lot of players in East countries, they are good, but they not good at English, not good at connecting with good talents. So what I do here is that I hope to bridge the gap between these two worlds, right? And trying to unite it into the good metaverse. Yeah.
Thank you. And so you're speaking about bridging the gap from the east to the west. And my next question is towards Mike about bridging the gap between traditional gamers and Web3 gamers, right? Well, all of us here in this room, we see blockchain and we're like, oh, wow, this is clearly going to have some good value that we can bring into the traditional gaming ecosystem. It's obvious. But it takes time to get there. And there's a lot of hurdles and challenges that we have to go through. So I wonder if you could speak a moment to some of the hurdles and challenges in your own words that you see that we're going to have to, address and as an ecosystem, you could say, to get that mass adoption of traditional gamers into the Web3 world.
Yeah, so actually Steven definitely touched on a few of these things earlier, for sure. But there's so much complexity when you start thinking about how you go from someone who's never thought about a blockchain, has no idea what private keys and seed phrases are, and all these things, to being able to jump into a game and implement all those things and even understand why that's a benefit to you. And so I think something that I've been trying to solve, or at least helping to contribute to solve, pretty much since the beginning of our career, is really just like the UX and the wallet experience. And like Steven said, we've come a really long way to solve a lot of these problems with things like multi-party computation, account abstraction, lots of technical words that, again, a lot of Web2 people will have no idea what it means. But it's okay, because the whole point of those technologies is really to abstract away the complexities and try to bring some of the things that people are really used to the forefront, and being able to make it so that you can spin up a wallet and not even realize you're spinning up a wallet in the background, and then once maybe the incentive or the understanding of why blockchain is important clicks once you're in the game. For example, maybe I'm playing a game and I win a big sword, and then a friend of mine tells me that I just sold my sword for $1,500 on a marketplace. Then I have an incentive to understand how to take what I've done and then benefit from it. So at that point, then I can, I'll be more willing to go through all of the hoops to understand, okay, how do I actually export my seed phrase, or how do I use a wallet that makes more sense so that I can take that item, get it onto a marketplace, and take advantage of that opportunity. So I think that's UX is the biggest hurdle, at least in terms of like player adoption, and UX also applies on the developer side. I've already talked for a minute here, so I won't go too deep into that, but on the developer side, you actually have a somewhat similar experience. So game developers may or may not be familiar with distributed systems and what it means to index a blockchain, and have like really long wait times in order, you have to wait 30 seconds for some action to occur. So you need tools that'll then help the game developer abstract that away as well. And two of the products that we're working on actually help to fix both of those problems, or at least help make it a little bit smoother.
Thank you. And Spencer, my favorite question. We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we had our little chat, and this is the question that I think is on a lot of people's minds. We launch Apechain. You launch Apechain. Who's going to build on it? Who's going to be there? What kind of games are going to be there? This is really the question that circulated in all of the private chats, the public chats, really. We want to have an Apechain that's used, that brings the ecosystem together. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit about maybe some of the early discussions, if you're even able to announce a couple little things, who you're talking with that's going to be launching and building on Apechain.
Yeah, so I think there are a couple things here. And I'm going to try not to get into trouble with it.
all the alpha's coming out here.
Back, you'll excuse me, but so as we're thinking about how does the ecosystem get built here, right? It's really important for us to be like, this isn't necessarily like PlayStation or Xbox or Steam. There actually are things that kind of mirror that kind of idea and sort of way of approaching things, right? It's closer to like a Nintendo sort of approach, right? In terms of there is very strong IP, there are very strong games, and they're kind of out there, and they don't necessarily have a home right now, right? When we look at the things that are happening from, Yuga, from Animoca, and from Animoca subsidiaries, and all of the things that are taking advantage of the Ape IP right now, right? And we see that a lot of the sort of first movers and initiatives on that side, are going to be structured and centered around, okay, how do we bring, apes and mutants and, now maybe moonbirds, right? And, anything in all those ecosystems over and start to kind of populate those characters into games within this ecosystem and be able to use those to draw other things in, right? And as David said, like, there will be other stuff eventually, but I think that this is a place where it's a really unique opportunity in Web3 to center things around properties that already have pull, right? And also to allow people, because of the way that apes in particular are set up with the IP and the fact that you can go and develop with your own things, use your own and all these different games and kind of leverage that, how do we actually make it easier for people to create games around that IP that they have, and also how do we make sure that we're bringing in the games that allow people to use that, right? You should be able to do a kart kind of racer game where you use your ape, and that should live on Apechain, and that makes a lot of sense, right? In terms of the specifics, what I will say is that right now we're sort of in kind of the infrastructure phase in terms of making sure that we're having the contact and getting on board all the ways that you bring assets over or don't bring assets over, right? And how you can mirror assets and get receipts for them. And we're never going to get to a point, I don't think, where we're telling people to bring BAYCs over off of Ethereum. Like, people will be up in arms, and that shouldn't be the intention. And it's not necessary, right? Necessarily. But things like in-game items, right? Things like that. How do you get those over? So, what I would say, that's a really roundabout way to kind of get to your answer, I understand, but I think it's important to understand all the context and the things that are happening to set that up. A lot of the focus right now is on seeing where there are properties that are kind of existing out there right now and bringing them over, or having similar properties from those same people who are over. That's sort of the focus on that side right now. And then, in the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to kind of get into some of the more specifics on that side. But that's just kind of the general direction of where it's going, and you can kind of draw the conclusions from that, that you would. But, I would expect in the near future we're going to start to be able to have announcements, around that. And then I think also on the Animoca side, right? And we're doing a lot of discussions right now with, we just talked yesterday with Fjords, making sure that people in the Ape Incubator and that they're building stuff on there, and that's another way for developers to be able to get involved as well. And so I think that will be important too. But overall right now, there's some of like, I don't want to like steal phrases, but it's like a little bit of like apes come home kind of stuff, right? Where we want to make sure that we're getting all the stuff that is out there and bringing what makes sense onto here as the starting and grounding point.
Specifics coming soon. You heard it here. Specifics are coming soon. All right, and then I wonder if you could speak a little bit more about Ape as an OTF and what kind of impact that might have on the ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to. I mean, this is going to be a really interesting thing. So for anybody who doesn't know, one of the really important parts of our proposal was to make sure that we were getting Ape to what our partners at Layer Zero call an Omnichain state. In the past, you may have heard this called like cross-chain or multi-chain, things like that, right? But the branded version there is Omnichain, so I try to make sure that I'm always using it. But the idea here is to propagate Ape into other ecosystems. So Ape is a token that traditionally has basically just existed on Ethereum, right? And there have been pockets of liquidity in different places. There's some pockets of liquidity on Polygon and a couple of other places. But there's never really been a big push in terms of having it be in places where you could really use it in DeFi. And it's been a big missed opportunity, I think, for ApeCoin. And so, you know, it's also one of these things where as we're getting to Apechain, you know, yes, we're working on the direct on-ramps and seeing, you know, looking into and working with some of the bigger centralized exchange players about the on-ramps there as well as direct on-ramps. You know, but it's going to be really important to be able to bridge directly from Ethereum where a lot of it's held. It's also going to be really important to have Ape accessible on Arbitrum 1, right? You know, on the Horizen Labs side, we obviously also believe that it's very important to have it in Eon and to have that be as an example of how does it live in multiple ecosystems. And so eventually we'll also start to get onto, you know, the Polygons and Optimisms and ZK6 and the other places in the world. But in the short term, the real objective here is that we want it to be on Arbitrum 1 because we want people to be able to get Ape on-chain without having to get it from Ethereum and to bridge it over. We want it to be very accessible, and we want it to be, you know, both ways, right? The other really important thing with that is that because this is a gaming-centric ecosystem, it will have some DeFi on it, right? You know, I'm sure that there will be a lot of things that are kind of being built up around there, but it's not the primary objective, right? And by nature of being an orbit chain, we're connected to one of, you know, if not the best, you know, DeFi ecosystem, right, that's there right now, and it gives us access to all of these things, right, and it gives ApeCoin access to all of these things. And for ApeCoin and from the Ape community, that opens up so much more utility in addition to the gaming that it's really important. And so, you know, we're working right now, there should be an OFT and initial kind of bridges within the month or so is what it's looking like. And, you know, from there, we're also working closely with a lot of the protocols that are on Arbitrum 1, you know, in terms of being able to start to look, you know, what does seeded liquidity look like in there? What do incentives look like? We'll be bringing things forward to the special counsel on ApeCoin DAO and what that looks like soon. And then, you know, from there, it's sort of kind of being able to free ApeCoin to be able to do all the things that we want it to do, right? And to continue to be useful on Ethereum, but it just gains so much utility just from the nature of having those borders opened around it.
Thank you. And wrapping up with our final question here before we open up some Q&A for everyone is, now Spencer spoke a little bit about some potential partnerships with specifics coming soon. We heard that. I wondered.
Hold me to it.
I will hold you to it. I think we all will, right? We all will. And good naturedly, of course. We want to see this succeed. We want to like help drive it forward, and so all in good spirits. So David, Mike, and you know, I wanted to just open this up to you know, and Steven as well. What kind of partnerships are the three of you excited to see roll into the development and the launch of Apechain? In your own words, maybe go ahead, David.
I think from the community side, I think I'm always, you know, thinking from the community side, because ApeCoin DAO is, you know, united by community, right? So what we wanted to see is that, you know, we want to, you know, try to you know, how to say, include every, you know, member into the ecosystem, right? So we have seen that just like, you know, we have a lot of holders, you know, participants in ApeCoin DAO, but sometimes it seems that there are several key players there. This means that like we have like 2K users or like 200K users, whatever. But sometimes 90% of people, they don't have the sense of belonging in the DAO, right? So regarding Apechain, what we have in mind is that we hope that everyone could have the opportunity to join the building, and something like create a program and incentives that we can have for the members. Then they could actively participate in joining the building chain and these kind of things. So that's what we have in mind. And one more thing is also important is that we want to get how to say, just like the topic that you shared is about the communication. It's really important that we hope that from the community and Apechain, Yuga Labs, Horizen, I think the whole ecosystem, we could have a better communication than before. So if we look at the DAO governance in the past 2 years, the problem is that less communication between members and the structure, the DAO governance structure. So how to solve this kind of problem is really important in the coming days. Also, this is a big how to say challenge for Apechain in the coming future. So I think trying to solve these kind of things, trying to make a better communication between members and between the organizers is really important.
All the boring things, all the infrastructure stuff, it's got to happen. No offense to the infrastructure people, but obviously it's important and all those things need to happen. But I do think that when it comes to Apechain, we're trying to build something new. We're trying to build a new chain, not another layer 2, not another, or layer 3, what have you, that is kind of standard and we've seen before. We can't repeat the same patterns and expect to see success. So I think Apechain needs to bring in innovative games, maybe even game ideas that we've never even seen before. Yuga Labs has done some interesting things with like this concept of almost like pop-up games, where like we have like a 2-week experience, seasonal type stuff. This is kind of new. You haven't seen things like this exactly in the past in the Web 2 space, and the Web 3 world is really catered to that. You can do all kinds of really interesting things that incentivize short time gameplay. So yeah, things like that. Extremely fun games. I just want to be able to play fun shit and have a good time and hang out with my friends and showcase all the cool things that I've done and all the amazing like crazy items I've collected and how cool all my stuff looks. So
yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it should be fun, right? Like that's the only thing that really matters. It should be fun, but everything else will sort itself out.
So wrapping up our final question with our final panelist, Steven, did you want to add in anything about your things, partnerships or collaborations that you feel specifically excited about?
Yeah, so I agree with all that, and I think that's primary. But one thing I'll say, which slightly different angle to this answer, is I think that there is a tremendous opportunity for a strong collaboration between, and David sort of touched on this before, between the ApeCoin DAO and the Arbitrum DAO. Right now in the DAO circles, there are talks going on for a very, very significant gaming incentive program, and Apechain would be a natural recipient for some of those funds. But it's important though for the Apechain community to be represented in the Arbitrum DAO, to be at that table, because if you look at who all the delegates are, they represent the largest protocols on Arbitrum. That might be GMX and Treasure, etc. And I think there's an opportunity for Apechain to be there as well and make sure that it's represented. So I think it is part of the ecosystem, and it should make sure that and there are probably many in the ecosystem that would delegate to someone that says, hey, my goal going to the Arbitrum government, if you will, is to represent the the interest of the ApeCoin DAO, and I think that's going to become increasingly important. And there are synergies both ways, where I think the Arbitrum community can benefit a lot from participating more in the ApeCoin community and really extending to geographies where it's weaker, and those might be strong. ApeCoin might be stronger, and so I think that there is mutual benefits of growing these two communities together as well. And I'm excited to see that happen and people really step up and say, hey, I want to be that delegate in the Arbitrum DAO, say, that represents ApeCoin and Apechain, and this language David and I spoke about a lot, and I think there is tremendous opportunities there, but there's a lot, that can be done by, taking these two communities, which complement each other in many ways, and saying, how can we build something that's stronger and more representative of the best parts of both of them.
Well, thank you very much for that. And now we're going to open it up to the audience here. If you got some questions, what I'd ask is if you can perhaps raise your hand. I'll call you out. If you can stand up and just say it nice and loud so everyone can hear it at the same time. Questions? Who's up? We got one hand right here. If you want to stand up and maybe just say what your name is and what your question is.
Yeah, I'm Matthew, and I'm just wondering, because there's been a lot of talk about there needing to be that infrastructure built. And I guess, Relant and myself are both one of those boring infrastructure guys. So I'm really curious to hear what specifically needs to be built, where there's room for growth and how we can contribute to stuff.
So right now there's a lot of choices and recommendations, being made. I would say that, to me, the real main goals of here are that interoperability, right? Access. I think you'll hear a lot of people talk about, the need to be able to get on and off of the chain easily. You've heard today about the fact that account abstraction, right, is obviously an enormous part of that, and sort of the ability for people to interact with games. I think that this is going to be a chain where this is not, the idea here is not to 100% abstract away, the crypto and blockchain parts of it. That doesn't make sense with this community, right? But it's sort of this nice ability to be able to pick and choose and have those options. Those are all things that are going to come in, and there's an opportunity to get involved in. On that side, I would say, there are things to be solved and to get involved in terms of how assets are represented and mirrored and what that looks like. And then I would also say that there's going to be a big thing about, how does ApeCoin continue to get uses on this chain? And a lot of that will be in the infrastructure, right? I know that we can do what we can to try and get games, for example, to incorporate ApeCoin into their in-game economies, but the truth of the matter is that a lot of games are going to want to use their own tokens in their in-game economies, and there are a lot of economic questions around that need to be solved. And so it becomes really important over time to make sure that ApeCoin, even when it's not at the center of the game, right, that it is incorporated into everything around it. And so, that's a very wide kind of answer to that, but what I would say is there's a lot of places to get involved on the infra side here. There are a lot of things that are going to be unique about it, in terms of that as well. And, if you want to do a follow-up, I'm happy to talk about it and brainstorm, but that's sort of the overall general answer at this point.
And I think we have time for two more questions here, and then a final one-liner wrap-up question for our panelists. Next question, please. You just want to put your hand up, and we'll get that question to the panelists. I got a question. If there's no hands up there, I'm putting my own hand up. I'm going to participate in my own moderation here. Oh, look at this. I have a question. I'm Memebrains. I'm part of the ApeCoin DAO, and I would love to hear what's next in maybe a concise, simple one-liner. Maybe starting, Spencer, from the Horizen side. What's a one-liner? What's the specific actionable that's highest priority as the next step for Horizen when it comes to Apechain?
Yeah, it's getting the infrastructure, the on-chain infrastructure as opposed to the RAS, recommendations and a lot of those things that off-chain is really leading the way from, but then the wheel assist on. It's really getting the on-chain infrastructure and the environment in place to grow this, and also to be able to set up sort of the funding mechanisms, specific governance mechanisms. All of the underlying stuff there is really, first on the mind.
All right, thank you. And then coming from the Offchain Labs perspective, Steven, I wondered from your perspective, what would you say is the one-liner specific next top priority for you with Apechain?
Yeah, the top priority is, I alluded to before, getting to that concrete set of recommendations, presenting it to the community, and then engaging and listening to feedback and finalizing to something where seems that most people are happy with.
And then from the CR3 Labs perspective, Mike, I'm wondering, same question. What is your top priority for Apechain right now?
Can I have two? Because I have two products.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it. Do
All
it.
right. We have an infrastructure product, so how to plug into Apechain. That's step number one. What's that going to look like? What are the steps required? Sounds like there's some things to happen first before we know. And then number two, we have a Web3 profile that enables you to own your on-chain gaming legacy. And we want to understand how that profile becomes basically the portal to the Apechain.
Love it, love it. And then, last but not least, best for last, wrapping us up here from the official ApeCoin Metaverse Working Group. What is the top priority right now from your perspective and all the responsibilities you have in ApeCoin DAO? What is your top priority when it comes to Apechain right now?
So I think top priority will be community involvement. It's really important that everyone could join. I think everyone has, sort of this point before, but no one has done this. So that's why I'm here. I'm trying to get everyone involved, into these kind of things. And then the second thing is that, we need a new narrative. That's why here, with Steven, with Horizen, with Spencer, right? So, yeah, so community involved and with a new narrative. So then we can make ApeCoin great again. Yeah.
Love it. You know what? That is the right way to wrap up this panel. We're going to make ApeCoin great again. Thank you very much to our panelists. Thanks to our audience.
Thank you.
Thanks for this Hacker House. ETHDenver vibes are real. Apechain is real and happening. Let's do this. Thank you very much.